What are the benefits of concealed ovulation? Stick around and let's chat about it today on this episode of Christian Date Coach. Let's hit it. What's up, everybody? My name is drphoenixsingh. I want to warmly welcome you to this episode of Christian Date Coach, the channel where we discuss attraction, dating, and relationships from an evidence-based perspective and also from a Christian perspective. My view very deeply is that God, having created us as human beings, it's important for us to know as much as we can about ourselves biologically because our bodies biologically are of God. And so because of that, it's important that we learn as much as possible about them. And obviously, we as human beings were meant to be a social species, to be able to interact with other individuals, and certainly to do so romantically as well. And there's so many things to be able to learn about human beings, about men and women, about the dynamic between them, about this beautiful symmetry between men and women. A lot of people try to talk about men and women being identical these days. There's no doubt that the intrinsic value of men and women is deeply, deeply identical. There's so much that we know biologically about men and women that makes us in such a beautiful way symmetrical, though. And this is something I also believe is given to us by God, and it's important to be able to know what those differences are, not only so that we can appreciate ourselves more, but also so that we can appreciate, in some cases, give our partners a break, but appreciate our partners more. And that's one of the big goals here on this channel. And one of the things that's very important, and especially if you watch other videos on this channel, you're going to know about me, is that I really take an evolutionary perspective on all of this and really kind of try to get to these primal roots, almost these hunter-gatherer roots, and also to be able to compare human behavior with those of other primates, for example, chimpanzees, baboons, gorillas we've talked about in other videos on this channel, etc. So one of the things that makes human females unique is that, unlike, let's say, chimpanzees, who we share the vast preponderance of our genetic code with, genetic variability with, human females do not go into heat, right? So don't go into estrus. Right? And there's a lot of things that in chimpanzees, for example, that happens, for example, in those types of primates, you know, the dominant male during estrus guards the female when she's going through it, but then will end up leaving, you know, when ovulation is finished. And so versus in human beings, women are the ones who are hypergamous, meaning that they end up kind of doing the selection. Right? So this is very different than another primate species, right? Which I find fascinating. The human body, in other words, unlike, let's say, the bodies of chimpanzees, is designed really for constant sexual receptivity, as opposed to only, you know, once a month or once a quarter or once, you know, different species, it's, you know, different periods of time. But for human beings, it's really primed, the human body. It's pretty amazing for constant sexual receptivity. And there's a lot of different theories as to why that is. I would argue that principal amongst them is that it provides this receptivity a benefit for pair bonding even outside of ovulation. So independent of the ovulatory cycle, whether or not you can get pregnant or not at a given time. Because keep in mind that this ovulation is concealed. You know, let's say that we're dealing with, you know, certain types of baboons, for example. And so, for example, certain types of baboons, their hind region, right, changes color. For other types of gorillas, for example, the only time that you actually see the teats of the female's breast is when they're actually in heat. And then they go kind of back into the chest, versus for human beings, you know, we're one of the only mammals where the teats are all of the time descended, as they say. That's the language. So, pretty fascinating, right? That basically we have what's called either concealed ovulation or non-advertised ovulation. It's another term that is kind of bandied about, right? You know, so, you know, why would all this be? So like I mentioned, one of the benefits is, you know, being able to, you know, have and enjoy sex outside of ovulation really promotes pair bonding. We'll talk in another video about neurobiologically what happens when you're having sex and right after you have sex as well. in terms of what are the benefits, right? Or what are the things that kind of bond us to our partner? And there's a lot going on, and it's pretty fascinating. So I'm looking forward to making that video for you guys. But one kind of, not downside, but one thing that you also have to think about is that this kind of, concealed or non-advertised ovulation also allows females to cheat on their partners with more desirable mates. Now, at the end of the day, the way that hypergamy works in human beings is that women date horizontally and up, and men date horizontally and down, right? This is essentially what happens in terms of dominance hierarchies, and this has been seen for millennia. This isn't some new thing, right? This is not some socially constructivist sort of thing, right? This is just biologically, how this works, and that's an important thing to know, from my perspective. So what happens here is that, women, because they're dating up, are always looking for something essentially higher. And this is very different for men, essentially, even though men, of course, cheat, and we'll make other videos about lying and cheating and, what men versus women lie about most commonly, is sneak peek. Men lie more, but we lie about really, simple things. So, it's like, oh, I couldn't call you because my phone died. That's our line. We tend to be pretty bad at lying. And one of the reasons we're bad at lying is that compared to women, we have a terrible ability to read nonverbal communications. So we always think it's like, women have this, women's intuition, but women's intuition really is mostly due to the far superior ability to read nonverbal behavior and those sorts of communications, right? But again, we'll make another video on that. But at the end of the day, women are always looking for kind of desirable males. This is why, even if you've been married for, 40 years and these things, it's very natural to still look at members of the opposite sex and be attracted. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're a guy, you should not get angry or, frustrated or jealous that your partner watches a movie with Brad Pitt and is attracted to Brad Pitt. Right? And ladies, you shouldn't get really angry if, you guys are out at, let's say, a bar or a club or something like that, and your partner ends up, looking for, a fraction of a second, what you perceive to be too long, at a woman who's passing by. And we'll actually talk about that in another video as well. And why is it that men kind of have that wandering eye and women in the aggregate do not have that wandering eye in terms of literally looking at individuals for longer than maybe you would desire them to. So we'll talk about that because there's an actual biological reason for that difference. So ladies, you really shouldn't get angry at your guys if something like that happens. In any case though, right? Because women end up dating horizontally and up and vertically, what ends up happening is that it is something that happens where women are looking for a more desirable male. And of course, there's so many different variables that go into this. It's not that if somebody's richer or better looking or whatever it is, that you're going to get left. I don't want to leave you with that impression because it's simply not true. All I'm saying is that the fact that ovulation itself is not advertised means that females are able to cheat on their partner when ovulation is taking place with more desirable males. And we'll talk about in other videos some pretty fascinating phenomena that have to do with ovulation, as well as different levels of sexual interest and the types of men that women go for. Let's say that they're kind of dating, they're single, the types of men that women are more interested in during ovulation versus in non-ovulatory parts of the month. And so we'll go through that because I find it quite interesting. And I find that nobody talks about this for some reason, especially nobody in the church talks about it. So this is, the role that I'm hoping to play, is to be able to, educate everybody about these things. But in any case, that's coming up for you. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, it's a blessing to be able to have you here. Please do, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel and hit that bell so you get notifications every time that we post new original content. If you're interested in having me come and speak to your congregation or to your small group, it would be a pleasure to be able to do that. Just contact me via the website below to be able to schedule a booking. In addition to that, if you're interested in one-on-one or group-based date coaching, please do go ahead, again, contact me via the website below, and you're going to get a whole bunch of information on there about how to get in touch. So I'm signing off for the day, everyone. God bless you. Don't forget to get out there, take chances, and be your best self, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed that episode and you'd like to see more original content, then please do click on one of the links right here. I hope to see you in the next one.